Now we'll turn our attention to two other competitive races that are getting national attention. Senate contests in both Texas and Arizona are coming down to the wire. Some say these once reliably red strongholds are now looking like swing seats. In Arizona, the fight is on to replace Republican Senator Jeff Flake. Two Congresswomen, Republican Martha McSally and Democrat Kyrsten Sinema, are vying for the spot. Then, in Texas, incumbent Republican Senator Ted Cruz is defending his seat from Democratic Congressman Beto O'Rourke. For more on these races is Gromer Jeffers. He is a political writer for the Dallas Morning News. And Dennis Welch is the political editor of KPHO-TV, our Phoenix affiliate. Welcome to you both. Gromer, let me start with you. You are going to be hosting the first debate between Senator Cruz and his Democratic challenger, Representative O'Rourke, this week. What will voters be watching for during the first debate?
Well, it will be fascinating because, the polls show a tight race. So the basis of each candidate, particularly Cruz's conservative base here in Texas, will be watching him as he tries to unravel O'Rourke. O'Rourke has enjoyed a real strong rise in the polls since he got into the race. I mean, he's probably the most popular candidate going now in Texas. I mean, he's appeared on national shows like Ellen and Stephen Colbert. So this is Cruz's opportunity, who is an experienced debater, to try to unravel him. O'Rourke, he will try to remain positive, try to be that inspirational candidate. We'll see how it goes. Cruz can be pretty determined, pretty mean, pretty vicious during his debates. You saw the presidential debates with Trump. So it'd be interesting to see how it plays out.
Well, so Gromer, Senator Cruz did an interview this weekend where he said that Congressman O'Rourke was jumping to conclusions regarding a Dallas police officer who shot an unarmed black man in his home. Let's listen to that.
It's possible what happened was a horrifying and horrific misunderstanding, or it may be something else. And that's why we have a legal justice system, to actually learn what the facts are, learn what happened. I wish Beto O'Rourke and Democrats weren't so quick to always blame the police officer, always attack the police officer. She may have been in the wrong. She's facing legal proceedings, and if a jury of her peers concludes that she behaved wrongly, then she'll face the consequences.
So, Gromer, how closely are voters paying attention to that issue?
They're paying a lot of attention to this issue in Texas, and it shows you how different the candidates are on it. Cruz is saying, let's not jump to conclusions. You can see he's sort of being sympathetic in a way to police and law enforcement. Friday at a church in Dallas, Beto O'Rourke suggested or said that the police officer who's on administrative leave should be fired, and he basically questioned, the investigation and how the release that the unarmed man who was killed had small amounts of marijuana in his kitchen was relevant. So you can see the differences there. And again, this will all play out during the campaign, because Cruz is going to try to paint O'Rourke as a liberal. O'Rourke knows the importance, though, of these issues with his Democratic base. African Americans, for that matter, make up a large part of the Texas Democratic base.
Let's turn to Arizona. Dennis, let me ask you about how the Arizona Senate race is shaping up. Why is this contest between Congresswoman McSally and Sinema becoming so competitive?
Well, I think, first of all, you look at, Martha McSally comes off this bruising primary, which Kyrsten Sinema, the Democrat, really didn't have to deal with. And you couple that with the fact that this was, Trump won this state a couple of years ago, but this was a swing state. This was a state that Hillary Clinton really thought that she could win a couple of years ago. So the state is changing demographically and politically as we're speaking right now. So I think that's what kind of accounts for a lot of the tightness and the closeness in this race. And you look at the polling right now, there's a new poll out today by CNN that shows that Kyrsten Sinema is up by 7 points. And I don't want to put a whole lot of stock in just one poll, but the trend is there have been several polls out here that do show that Kyrsten Sinema is in place. And most significantly, there was a Fox News poll recently that showed that Kyrsten Sinema, the Democrat, was drawing double-digit support from Republicans, which is a big deal because this is Arizona. This is still a very Republican state. When you look at the history here, you look at the voter registration numbers out here, Republicans hold a big advantage. Someone like Kyrsten Sinema is going to be running statewide, is going to need to poll as many Republicans as she can. She's doing that, and she has done that by really being a conservative Democrat, that blue dog Democrat out there. She has voted with Donald Trump 60% of the time. I think there's only maybe one or two more Democrats in the House that actually vote with the president more than Kyrsten Sinema has.
Interesting. You don't hear about blue dog Democrats so much these days anymore. But Dennis, let me go back to Congresswoman McSally, because during the primary, as you know, she really closely associated herself with President Trump. Has she maintained that kind of closeness or tried to kind of cast herself as being close to the president since then? And is that helping or hurting with voters, you think, especially since retiring Arizona Senator Jeff Flake has been so critical of the president?
Yeah, I have seen no evidence of McSally, backing away from Donald Trump. This is not something you dabble in. You don't dabble in Trump or Trumpism. I mean, once you go in with the president, you're kind of all in, and you're going to stay there with that. So she is going all in on this. She's going to continue to do that. Again, that primary was pretty bruising, and in this general election is going to be pretty bruising as well. We're 3 weeks into this general election, and so far Martha McSally has run not one single positive ad that I can tell. It's been a cycle of like really nasty, hard-hitting attack ads. And again, getting back to the poll, we're 3 weeks in, 3 weeks after all these attack ads, and it doesn't seem to be affecting Kyrsten Sinema right now. As again, she's still leading all the polls right now.
Interesting. Well, both of these races have garnered a lot of attention, but what are we missing by focusing on sort of the national implications instead of the local ones? Gromer, let me start with you in Texas.
Well, this race, Texas, like Arizona, is still a bright red conservative state, although Democrats argue it's a non-voting state. But you're absolutely right. There are local issues that are important. And what Cruz, for instance, is trying to do is hold his base. And it's funny how it's about how local voters view some of these issues, like the NFL anthem protest, the NFL players kneeling to protest police violence during the national anthem. Cruz's first ad is about that, not about immigration, not about guns or health care, but about the NFL players' protests. And that's pretty fascinating, because what he's trying to do is sort of get his base fired up to turn out in order to blunt O'Rourke, who needs Republican voters to win. The other thing is, though local issues matter, at the end of the day, it is still all about Donald Trump. And that's why Cruz wants Trump, so badly wants him to come to Texas to campaign for him, because he needs a mechanism to make sure conservative voters get out to the polls in November.
Interesting to, think about that NFL ad by Cruz.
Exactly.
And also having the president come and campaign for him in what you said is, obviously a very red state. What about, Dennis, in Arizona? What is it that when we focus on the national implications of a contest like the one that we're seeing there in the Arizona Senate race that we might be missing at the local level that voters are really paying attention to?
Well, I think that one of the issues I know that the Sinema people think is a winning issue this year is health care, and more specifically, veteran care. I mean, Kyrsten Sinema has really made this the centerpiece of her campaign. She's run a lot of ads about what she has done to take care of veterans' health care. Remember, a couple of years ago, there was a VA scandal, and Phoenix was really at the epicenter of that. There was this big scandal with accusations that the hospital here were hiding secret wait lists and that people were dying on this wait list. And we have a lot of retirees in Arizona, particularly in Maricopa County, where Phoenix is located, and a lot of veterans come out here to retire. This is an issue that they think that they can really win on. And just like Texas, obviously, Donald Trump, subtext to everything, but they would rather not talk about that, because they feel that Donald Trump is going to insert himself into this conversation no matter what they do, no matter what they say. So they want to stay out of that. They want to maintain this issue and this focus really on health care. They're also talking a lot about being tough on immigration. But again, that immigration issue is something that all border states are going to be dealing with this year.
That's right.
Yeah, well, we are about 50 days away from the midterms. Dennis, now that primary season is over, I mean, you touched on this a moment ago regarding Congresswoman McSally, but how are the campaign strategies changing, if at all, ahead of November?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about McSally, it is scorched earth. I mean, the ads out here are really nasty. They are accusing Kyrsten Sinema and trying to really frame this race out here as someone who was the war protester versus the combat pilot. You know, Martha McSally, for people who don't know, was the first female combat pilot in American history. There's a pretty big story there. But so she wants to contrast that with Kyrsten Sinema, who does have an anti-war protesting past out there. And you see pictures and images of Sinema on television all the time with these attack ads of her wearing a pink tutu, of protesting the Iraq invasion back in 2003. They're trying to go more like after this type of issue, trying to dirty her up rather than talk about the issues, because again, they came into this general election trailing in the polls. They're trying to bring her down at this point right now.
It'll be fascinating to see what effect those negative ads have. Gromer Jeffers in Dallas and Dennis Welch in Phoenix, thanks to you both.